We are in the book of Mark again today. We're back, finished our Unstuck series last week and back in the book of Mark. So you can turn there with me. We're going to be in chapter 5. If you don't have a Bible, we'll have the verses on the screen for you. And if you'd like a Bible, we'd love to give you one. So you can talk with any of our staff members in the foyer. Just say, hey, I would like a Bible. And somebody would be glad to give you one. There's no charge for that. We'd love for you to have it. As I mentioned, we'll be in the book of Mark. If you recall, we've been through the first 4 chapters of Mark this fall. We took a little bit of break over the Christmas holiday, and now we're back in Mark. And just to pick the story back up, so you remember where we're at, Jesus had been teaching on the shores of Capernaum, which is on the northern shore of the Sea of Galilee. He ends up getting in the boat after a long day of preaching and says to the disciples, we're going to go to the other side. Before we broke for Christmas, we had a guest pastor, Pastor Carly Hale was here, and he mentioned to us that Jesus is with us in our storms. So the storm sort of gusts up on the Sea of Galilee, and it tests the disciples' faith. And now they are on the other side of the Sea of Galilee. They've reached their destination, but they're kind of in the wrong part of town. The disciples probably think we took a wrong turn in the storm. And so we're going to see how them showing up at an uncomfortable place with difficult people is not just happenstance. It's actually a part of Jesus' intentional journey of transformation and discipleship in these men. And going to uncomfortable places and to difficult people is also a part of our discipleship journey. So let's begin with the first 13 verses of chapter 5. Here's what Mark tells us. They came to the other side of the sea, to the country of the Gerasenes. And when Jesus had stepped out of the boat, immediately there met him out of the tombs a man with an unclean spirit. He lived among the tombs, and no one could bind him anymore, not even with a chain, for he had often been bound with shackles and chains, but he wrenched the chains apart and he broke the shackles in pieces. No one had the strength to subdue him. Night and day among the tombs and on the mountains he was always crying out and cutting himself with stones. And when he saw Jesus from afar, he ran and fell down before him, and crying out with a loud voice, he said, "What have you to do with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I adjure you by God, do not torment me." For he was saying to him, "Come out of the man, you unclean spirit." And Jesus asked him, "What is your name?" He replied, "My name is Legion, for we are many." And he begged him earnestly not to send them out of the country. Now, a great herd of pigs was feeding there on the hillside. And they begged him, saying, "Send us to the pigs, let us enter them." So he gave them permission. And the unclean spirits came out and entered the pigs. And the herd, numbering about 2,000, rushed down the steep bank into the sea and drowned in the sea. This is a curious story, an interesting story. We've already encountered demon possession in the book of Mark, and Jesus has already shown that he has power over demons. But we're at another level in the discipleship journey right now. I want to show you a quick map. If you look on this map, this is kind of a zooming in of what would be the northern region of modern-day Israel. So if the map were to show you everything, over to the left side on the left side of Galilee would be the Mediterranean Sea. Below Galilee, you'll see Samaria. There's still, you can still read Samaria there. Below Samaria to the south would be Jerusalem, Judea, the capital city of Israel. To the southeast, you will see Decapolis, which is the 10 cities, and were not Jewish cities, they were Gentile cities. And there was a great separation between Jew and Gentile because they lived differently, they worshiped differently, and their entire society was separate. And then you'll see Again, that blue blob in the middle where you see Hippo and Tiberias, that little blue blob is the Sea of Galilee. And if you look to the northwest, you'll see Capernaum, where Jesus and his disciples were. And when Jesus said to his followers, let's go to the other side, what they presumed he was saying was, let's go to another port in Galilee, Tiberias, perhaps. They would surely have gone south and west, not east, because that's where the Gentiles lived. Now, that little green blob is the region that Mark is talking about here, the country of the Gerasenes. It's a little Syrian, probably Syrian province, and one of the main agricultural and economic centers for that little territory was the farming of pigs. They were probably farming pigs as a source of meat for the Roman army. Eating pork was not common. It was actually quite expensive. And so this little territory was probably set up to be the primary pig herders or farmers to feed meat to the soldiers in the Roman army and empire. Now, why does that matter to you, and what does it matter to the story? Well, part of the history of the Jewish people is that God had given them several instructions, guidelines to how to be separate, how to be unique from the Gentiles, to be set apart as his people. And one of the things that he commanded them to do was not to eat pork. Now, there were biological reasons for God to make that command in the ancient Near East. He was trying to keep them safe from foodborne illnesses. But there were also theological reasons that we don't quite have the time to get into today. But to be in a land, not only where pork was eaten, but where it was farmed, and where, this is a huge herd of pigs, 2,000 pigs. I grew up in Ashtabula County, which is kind of out in the country, and I've never seen that many pigs in one place. So Mark is intending to communicate to us, the reader, that the disciples are not in Kansas anymore. Surely when they got to the shore, they would have looked at Jesus and said, the storm must have caused us to make a wrong turn, because we are in the wrong part of town. This is not our territory. If they had seen all of those pigs feeding in the field, they would have equated that with being as far away from home, even though they're just a short trip across the Sea of Galilee. They would have equated that with being far away from home, far away from their people, far away from their customs, and far away from their God. This was enemy territory. But as we will see, Jesus has led them to the shore of the country of the Gerasenes, this pig-infested country, on purpose. The first heading for my sermon today is that Jesus leads his followers to uncomfortable places. Jesus leads his followers to uncomfortable places. They didn't stumble accidentally into the country of the Gerasenes. See, there has been a process so far in the discipleship, in the transformation, in the training of these men. Initially, Jesus calls them. He calls them out of, away from what is familiar to them. For those men who were fishermen, he calls them away from fishing. For Matthew, who is a tax collector, he calls him away from accounting. For the other men that were in different trades, he calls them away from those things, away from what's familiar, and he says, we're going to do a new thing. You're going to come with me, you're going to learn from me and with me. And then he begins to teach them the way that his ways are a little different than the world's ways. The ways of the kingdom of God are a little bit different than the kingdom of the Romans. or even their Jewish ways. And he even, in Mark 4, he teaches them. They come to him and they go, we don't understand the parables. Help us to understand. And so he's explaining to them the way that the kingdom of God works and how he teaches and how his message will grow and expand. And so then he takes them from there. So he calls them out of the familiar. He begins to teach and train. And then he starts to test them. He takes them on this little boat ride out in the middle of the sea. And a storm stirs up. And they go, wake up, we're all going to die. And he asks, like, do you still not have faith after all the miracles that you've seen? Do you not have faith that if you're with me, you're safe? And then the storm finishes up, and they sail right onto the shore of the country of the Gerasenes. And they, I'm sure, would have been surprised when instead of shoving the boat back off and heading back to the western shore, Jesus gets out. And Mark says the very next most important thing for us to know is that a demon-possessed crazy man comes screaming and yelling at him down the hills. See, Jesus is showing his disciples and he's showing us that he is going to purposefully, as a part of our training in his ways, as a part of training in our discipleship, as a part of becoming more like Jesus, he is going to lead us into uncomfortable places. See, I think a lot of us, we might respond the same way that the disciples have. Jesus says, follow me. And so maybe you're here and one day you responded to Jesus. You said, yes, Jesus, I want you to be the leader of my life and the forgiver of my life. I want you to forgive my sins, come in, begin to transform my life. I'm going to follow you. You're going to be my leader. And so then he begins to teach you. Right? You listen to podcasts, you go to church, you come to life group, you begin to learn things, you kind of start that journey. Then maybe Jesus sends you out into the Sea of Galilee and there's a little storm. He begins to test that faith, to test your trust in him. And so you get medical news or financial news or job news or family news or something begins to shake that faith. And you go, what are you doing? Are you sleeping? I'm in big trouble here. And Jesus is reminding that he is with us. And then there is a point like this moment where Jesus is going to slide your boat up onto a shore into a place that you are really uncomfortable with. And most of us are like, time out. This is not what I signed up for. I'm cool with churches that are clean and safe. I'm good with neighborhoods that bring a sense of comfort. I'm good with, hey, I'll go talk to people and be in a life group with folks that are easy to be around. Here's what I would like, Jesus, in case you want my opinion. I would like discipleship. I would like the training processes that keep my comfort and preferences right at the center. And Jesus goes, oh, no, we're not going to do it your way. We're going to do it my way. So when we say, whoa, you slid my boat up in the wrong part of town. Jesus says, no. This is not a detour. This is discipleship. See, Jesus is going to lead us towards people that don't share our values, towards places that maybe faith is not really appreciated, where Christianity is not celebrated, where it feels costly. He's going to lead us towards situations where obedience feels a little bit more risky than it does reasonable. And sometimes that will be on the other side of the world, and sometimes that will be on the other side of your street, and everywhere in between. And Jesus does this. He leads his followers to uncomfortable places, not because he's careless or not because he's making a mistake, but that's the next step in being formed as his follower. Jesus leads his followers to uncomfortable places. Secondly, Jesus leads his followers to difficult people. It's been real quiet in the room today. Jesus leads his followers to uncomfortable places and difficult people. Mark uses this word immediately pretty regularly, and what we've learned is that he doesn't mean it literally. When Mark says, and immediately this happened, he's cluing us into, there might have been a whole bunch of other stuff that happened, but the most important thing, the next most important thing for you to know is this. So surely Jesus and the disciples got out of the boat, and maybe there was some conversation about, hey, we're in the wrong part of town. Maybe they got their stuff out of the boat. All that stuff is inconsequential. What Mark wants us to know is the next most important thing for you to know is a man comes running down the hill out of the tombs with an unclean spirit. That's the way that Mark talks about demon possession. This man hasn't just had a bad day. He is actually being controlled, not only by one demon, but we will learn by thousands of demons. And we learn here, no one could bind him anymore. So the folks from the town, apparently, because we see what he does is he runs around the town, the tombs, the hills, screaming at the top of his lungs and cutting himself with rocks. And so on multiple occasions, the guys from the town have, gone out and they've tried to wrestle him down and they've chained him up and they've tried to save him from himself and they've tried to keep him away from the townspeople, and none of it works because the demons inside of this man display superhuman strength, and he snaps the chains apart, and it says that he rips the shackles to shreds. So Mark intends us to see just how much demonic power is present in this man. Extraordinary strength, and he even tells us in verse 4, he's very, very clear, no one had the strength to subdue him. The way that I would describe this is not a merely difficult situation. This is an utterly hopeless situation. No one can help this man. The spiritual forces that are at work inside of him, nobody is a match for, physically, mentally, or spiritually. And then this man encounters Jesus. And I can only imagine what it might have been like to be one of his disciples in that moment. You get out of the boat, you know you're in the wrong part of town. Here comes this demon-possessed man running down the hill at you. Like, dude, see, I told you guys, we need to get back in the boat. And Jesus is not rattled at all. The demon comes to him and the demons know Jesus. What have you to do with us, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? There was lore during that time where if you knew the name of your adversary, of your spiritual adversary, you could claim power over that adversary. So the demon is sort of testing the water here. I know who you are, and I know whose son you are. And Jesus doesn't flinch. He doesn't begin to bargain. Jesus is kind of polite. He says, what's your name? Not because he doesn't know, but because Jesus is about to show what true power looks like. And the demon, as if to puff out his chest, says, the name is Legion because we are many. So it's not just one. There are probably thousands of demons that have taken up residence in this man. And the demon is the one who begins the negotiation. And it's a weird negotiation. Don't force us to leave this country. So it's as if they know that Jesus is going to cast them out of the man, and they say, hey, we'd like to stay. Can we go into the pigs instead? Now, this is where so many people get hung up. Everybody gets worried about the pigs. Why the pigs? Why do the pigs have to die? Here's Mark's intent. We're supposed to see the extraordinary spiritual power that is at work in this man, such that no one is able to subdue him. And then when Jesus cast the demons out of this man, we're intended to see in the possession of the pigs and what happens to the pigs. It's Mark doubling down, showing us just, if you didn't think there was power in this man, if you didn't think the spiritual darkness was significant, I want to show you what happens. 2,000 pigs get possessed by demons, and what happens is 2,000 of them. I can't even imagine what that looks like. Stampede, there was a known cliff in this area that fell off into the Sea of Galilee. They stampede off the cliff and die. And some people are like, oh man, the pigs. Like, oh, this is an economic problem for the people in this town. Mark doesn't talk about that at all. It's not his point. Jesus doesn't speak of it at all. His aim is to show us the extraordinary spiritual darkness and power that is present in this man, and how Jesus is the only one that has the power to speak to this darkness and tell it what to do and where to go. We're intended to see that the aim that these demons had for this man and for this community, we're intended to see them in what happens to the pigs. They run these pigs straight to their death, which is exactly what the aim was for the man and for the folks in this community. This is, again, where it's important for us to see how this is a moment of Jesus displaying his power. And that's important. But we've seen Jesus display his power in the book of Mark already. We've seen that he has power over demons. We've seen that he has power over sickness. We've seen that he has power over nature. So why this scene? Why this situation? Apparently communicating to us the things that we already know. Well, again, this is a step in the formation process, in the discipleship process. The disciples need to know just what kind of authority and power they will be sent out with. See, in just a few months from this moment, Jesus will die. He will be resurrected, and he will send them out into the world. He'll be gone. Jesus will be gone. He'll ascend back to heaven, and he's going to send them out into the world. And he's beginning to clue them into the fact that if they try to take his love and his message to the world in their own strength and in their own power, they're going to run up against the same problem that the people in this town ran up against. Namely, they will have zero success. If they think, well, I've learned a lot from Jesus, and so my theology is pretty good. If they think, well, I've watched Jesus teach a couple times and share the good news of the gospel with people, my evangelism tactics are pretty good. I've watched the compassion of Jesus, and so I've learned how to be compassionate. I'm pretty good at that. Jesus, when he runs across, very intentionally, this extraordinary spiritual power, it is intended to freak the disciples out a little bit. For them to realize, man, there are some difficult situations that being really well read or really well trained or really smart or really good with people, that those things are not going to be enough to overcome the spiritual darkness that has a grip on the people that we're going to encounter. And they will meet these people. If you move forward to the book of Acts, I would encourage you to look through the book of Acts. They will meet people like Simon the magician, who has extraordinary dark powers. He has amazed entire cities. They're going to meet Saul of Tarsus before he becomes Paul. And he is so vehemently committed to the death of Christians that it is scary. They're going to meet a little girl in Philippi who has a demon in her that her owners, she's a slave girl, and this demon enables her to tell the future. And her owners are using her for profit. These are all the types of scenarios that the disciples are going to run up against. And Jesus is beginning to communicate to him right now, to them right now, you are going to need more power than you have in and of yourself, and you're going to need more authority than you think you have on your own. You will need my power and you will need my authority because only when I speak and only when I act does this type of darkness respond. See, in much the same way, when Jesus takes us to uncomfortable places, we're actually going to encounter very difficult people, difficult scenarios, situations that won't be able to be solved by our clever human means. And so Jesus is not only preparing his disciples of the first century, he's preparing, in Mark 5, his disciples of the 21st century. We would prefer, Jesus, how about you lead me to the places that I'm comfortable with and to people whose problems just maybe aren't that bad. Or inviting them to church is just enough. Where if I can just invite them to life group and they'll come and they're responsive and they're thankful. Can't my formation just be around people like that? One of the things that missiologists would say as it relates to mission in the world is that all of the easy places are gone. There are about 3 billion people in the world who have yet to be reached with the gospel message. They've never heard the name of Jesus. And the vast majority of them live in very hard places. And they're filled with people who have very serious, deep-rooted spiritual darkness. And Jesus is saying, not only to Peter and Andrew and James, these are the people I'm going to send you to, but he's saying that to you and me as well. This is the next step. You don't get to say, oh, we made a wrong turn back there. Jesus says, no, you're right where I want you to be, right in the place where you're going to have to rely on my power and my authority in you and not your own clever ideas. Jesus leads his followers to uncomfortable places, to difficult people, and finally to risky obedience. The pigs all die, and the herdsmen go back and tell the city, and they come out to see what in the world is going on. They see the demon-possessed man sitting there, clothed in his right mind, and they're afraid. And then in verse 17 it says, and they began to beg Jesus to depart from their region. So it might be that they're afraid because of the extraordinary power. Like, hey, it's been years and we have tried to solve this problem. Whoever this guy is that ran these evil spirits out of this man, he is serious business. So they may be afraid because of that. It may be that they're angry because they've lost the source of their income. Whatever the reason is, Mark intends us to know that they want Jesus to leave. It's interesting that they would have preferred the crazy demon-possessed man to continue to be in their town than for him to be healed and to have encountered this type of power. They began to beg Jesus to depart from their region, verse 18. And as he was getting into the boat, the man who had been possessed with demons begged him that he might be with him. Now, I would think this is the right answer. Right? The man has been freed from the clutches of darkness. He's been freed from the demon possession. He's now clothed. He's in his right mind. He's cleaned up. And he says to Jesus, I want to follow you. I want to get on the boat. I want to be a part of this band of brothers that's going to learn from you and grow with you and be trained by you and be sent out by you. Do you think this is the right answer? This is what Jesus is doing. He's doing the whole follow me and I will make you fishers of man. And surely this guy fits the bill. He's even leaning in. I want to follow you and be trained by you. And Jesus says, no. Mark intends us to be a little bit flabbergasted by this. What do you mean? Jesus says, no, he did not permit him, but said to him, go home to your friends and tell them how much the Lord has done for you and how he has had mercy on you. And he went away and began to proclaim in the Decapolis how much Jesus had done for him, and everyone marveled. This is the first time in the book of Mark that Jesus tells anyone to go and tell other people. Right up until this point, he has, for some reason, among the Jews particularly, been keeping this quiet. Some of it may have been because all of the town centers in the areas that he wanted to do ministry were getting clogged and busy. But to this Gentile, he says, no, you can't come with me. I want you to go back to your friends and to your family. And it's curious, this almost feels irresponsible from Jesus. Like, I look at this through a church leader's lens, and I think, this guy's brand new to the game. You don't send him over to teach middle school class. He doesn't know any theology. He hasn't been through any training. He doesn't know any of the right answers. No. You've got to go through the training regimen first. And I'm not taking anything away from that. There are roles in our church and in the kingdom where it's important for you to be trained and know things and learn the Bible before you're teaching it to other people. But that's not what Jesus asks this man to do. His command is very simple. He doesn't ask him to be an evangelist. He doesn't ask him to be a teacher. He doesn't ask him to be a theologian. All he says is, what I want you to do is I want you to go tell other people what happened to you. I just want you to tell your story about how you are drowning in darkness, captured in darkness, and how you came upon me and I set you free and gave you meaning and freedom and purpose. That's what I want you to go tell people. See, I think sometimes one of the problems that happens in the church, and sometimes it's church leaders' fault, and sometimes it's church members' fault, is we spend all of our time just learning stuff. I need more training. I need more Bible study. I need more life group. I need more Sunday sessions. I need more podcasts. I need more listening to my favorite preacher on YouTube. I need more accountability meetings. I need more spiritual input. And Jesus right here in Mark 5 says, please go tell somebody what I have done in your life, for goodness sakes. That's enough of the input. And again, I'm not taking anything away from the input. But Christians, especially evangelical Christians, can be very well known for becoming spiritually fat or theologically fat and having no impact on the world or the community around them. The stats are astounding that well over 90% of people who call themselves evangelical Christians will die without ever having shared their faith with somebody. And so Jesus is giving us very clear marching orders. I'm going to send you to very uncomfortable places. And I'm going to send you to people that are in very difficult spiritual situations. And I'm not asking you to be well prepared enough. That is not the answer. I'm asking you to go in my power and in my authority and trust that I can transform hearts, that I can release chains from people, that I can pull people out of spiritual darkness and bring them into light. All I want you to do is tell people what I have done in your life and trust me with all the rest of it. Again, this is just one sermon on one day. So don't say, well, I never need to read my Bible again, or that's not the point. Stop. The Great Commission is perhaps maybe the second most famous saying in the Bible, outside of John 3:16. And if I were to ask you what the Great Commission is, odds would be that you would say something like this: go into all of the world and make disciples of all nations and baptize them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, teaching them to obey everything that I have commanded you. And lo, I am with you to the end of the age. You'd probably say something like that. You might not quote it. You might quote it in your version of the Bible. You might give me some bullet points, but that's probably what you would say. Go, where? Into all the world. Do what? Make disciples, baptize them, teach them. And you would have it wrong. You would have the Great Commission wrong if that's what you said, because you're missing the foundation of the Great Commission, and we pass over it as Christians all the time. Say, look, go back to verse 18. Let's read it in context. And Jesus said to them, here's where the quote begins. This is the beginning of the quote of the Great Commission. This is the bedrock. This is the foundation under which all the rest of it lies. All authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me, Jesus says. Now, go therefore. The therefore. What's the therefore? It's there because Jesus says the only reason you can go and share and baptize and teach is because every place at every time amongst all people groups to the ends of the earth belongs to me. And so you go in that authority, in that strength, in that power. And if you're asking that question inside of your brain, Jesus, how could I possibly go to that situation, to that place, to those people, to encounter this spiritual problem? There's no way that I can do it. I don't have what it takes. I'm not very good with words. I'm not a very good evangelist. I'm not a leader. I'm kind of awkward. I look funny. I'm broken down. I can't remember things. I need a name tag to remember people's names. There's no way I can do this. And Jesus says, would you stop talking about yourself so much? Let's go back to the beginning of the quote. All authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Go, therefore. Because of that, you go. Jesus is going to call us as individuals and as a church more and more as we are being formed into the image of Jesus. If we're a year, 2 years, 5 years down the road, and our collective and individual spiritual journeys have gotten no more difficult, we are totally striking out as followers of Jesus. We have been in a season We kind of joke amongst our staff, don't say the T word, transition. As we've looked for a new lead pastor, as we've had staff people come and go, a lot of our prayers have been internal. Lord, keep us together, keep us unified, keep us of one heart, keep us of one mind, help us to move together. And I'll just tell you, we've started for the first time in a long time some strategic planning, because we've got to get, as a church, we've got to get our eyes and our hearts and our hands and our feet back into the world in the harvest. There is nothing wrong. I love everything that we do in this place. I love the teaching that we do, the community that we have, the Sunday school classes, the events that we hold, the women's breakfast and the youth retreat and all this stuff. I love it, I love it, I love it. It's all good. And Jesus has said that all authority in heaven and on earth has been given to him. And so we have difficult places and difficult situations in this world that we need to engage with the authority of Jesus, with the power of Jesus, because if it's just us, like if Jesus has just called us and we're just going to sit in church and we'll be comfortable and happy and won't tell any other people about Jesus, then honestly, count me out. I quit. It's not the kind of church I want to lead. It's not the kind of mission I want to be on. And I don't think you do either. I'm just trying to prime the pump, because I'm telling you, as we are praying into what God has next for us, what we can't have is people saying, I'm not smart enough yet. I don't have enough training. I'm uncomfortable with that. I need more skills. I need more life group. I need to be better with people. I need more name tags. One of the primary obstacles that we run up against in our church is that we desperately need more leaders to multiply our effectiveness out in the world. And the number one answer that we get, for those of you who are serving, I don't mean to come down hard on you. For those of you who are leading, I'm not trying to shame you. But one of the number one answers that we get is, not me. I'm not ready yet. And Jesus says, all authority has been given to me in heaven and on earth. That's the grounding. Stop talking about yourself and how comfortable you are or how well prepared you are. All authority has been given to me, and so it is time to go. So my prayer and my heart for you is that you would go home today and begin to think, Lord, what kind of hard are you calling me into? And my prayer for our church and each of us individually is that we would have stories of being in way over our head, across the street and across the globe, and Jesus continuing to show up and prove that he has all authority in heaven and on earth, to the glory of the Father and the good of his people. Let's pray. Father, my prayer is that you would take this church and each of us individually into storms that redirect our sails and redirect the ship of our lives away from shores that are easy, shores that are familiar, and shores that we're comfortable and capable of being at on our own. And that you would drive us to hard places, to hard people, with unsolvable problems, that you might prove that you do indeed have all authority in on heaven and on earth to the ends of the earth. So cause us, Father, to step into this discipleship process, to risky, costly obedience. Might that be the heartbeat of our church, for your glory and for the kingdom. We ask in Jesus' powerful name. Amen.
Thank you for listening to today's sermon from Cuyahoga Valley Church. We hope you've been encouraged and challenged. If you're looking for a home church and would like to learn more about what we believe, upcoming events, or ways to get involved, please visit our website at cvconline.org.